Welcome back for another episode of Safety Talk Tuesday. Today we are talking about student activities, and my guests today are Zach Duffield, Executive Director of Athletics, and Zach McGinty, our lead athletic trainer in our facility. So guys, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all things safety with student activities. And so the first thing on my list here is just overall, let's think about facilities. So think about the track, the football field, the basketball court. How do we prepare or make sure that our facilities are safe for our athletes as well as those that attend our events?
Yeah, I think one of the first things we do is we always try to do a really good job before events and going through and seeing what work orders maybe need to be put in for our plant operations team to make sure that all of our lights are burning properly and all of our stairs and steps are clean and in proper working order. Our bleachers don't have spots in those that make someone could misstep and hurt themselves. So I think we start there, and then we get into more of the crowd part, as far as having security there. And then we could even go down as far as to our student athletes as far as their training into the event. I think that's where we can bring Zach in a lot on that, and then just the techniques the coaches use for practice.
So I know there was an incident in Tulsa Public Schools a couple of years ago that prompted a lot of our districts, the area districts, to kind of change those, tighten up those safety protocols as far as security officers and things like that. So talk to us a little bit about do we always have a security officer at our facility?
Yeah, anytime we have an event for any student activity, we have a security officer there, whether that's a off-duty Owasso police officer or a school security officer. We work through Paul Croft, our Director of Safety and Security, to help assign those, and Matt Goodell with the Owasso Police Department. But we always have security there. Now, depending on the size of the event, is depending on how many officers we have. But we always start there. We always feel like if we're going to have an event, we have to have security there. And I think that's what prompted us, like you said, a couple of years ago, clear bag policies and stricter security at the gate. And I know sometimes that's a frustration for our patrons and people that want to come in and watch our kids do amazing things. But I think one thing we decided is if we're going to have an event, we have to make sure it's safe for our community. And I think that's an expectation of Owasso, is that we do run things the right way, but we take care of our people also.
And we even have the canine officer come and do, like at the football games, don't we, where they come and do just kind of
They
walk
do a
the dog
perimeter
around.
sweep and make sure that there's nothing been left in the stadium. And some of that stuff is a little harrowing to even think about because it kind of gives you the ick a little bit. But I think that's the world we live in, and I think it gives our community a good sense of, hey, we're going to do things the right way here in Owasso.
Okay, so continuing on with the theme of game day safety, let's talk about preparing athletes and how do we ensure that they have all the things that they need to be ready to perform.
Sure. I mean, of course, that starts in practice, them preparing their bodies to be able to play, first of all. And, of course, we work with our strength coaches and sport coaches in order to ensure that they're where they need to be from a sport or from a physical standpoint. Let me
stop there. I just thought of a question. So with you guys, the trainers and the coaches, as far as putting together a practice plan, do you guys work closely together? Like how many minutes they're going to sprint and get their heart rate up, and what do they need for conditioning, and then recovery, and how much recovery time they need? Is that something the coaches do that on their own, or do they consult with you guys on that?
Some of that we do. Some of that is, there are 25 sports, so trying to do that for everybody is we would have to have a much larger staff. Yeah. But one thing that we have really kind of, I guess, pioneered with the strength staff has been a GPS system, which is pretty cool. So with football, with several other sports, we get a printout. And it says like how long it's been since somebody has sprinted to their full capacity, and we think that's a pretty big indication as to possible injury. And so if we can make sure that they're sprinting every week in practice, then we think that sets them up pretty good for a competition.
So that means if they're sprinting down the court in a basketball game, if they've already been sprinting some at their full capacity, you know that they're not going to pull a hamstring or something if they try to go all out.
Yeah, and there's some limitations to that GPS, and so we kind of have to work with it and kind of use some of what we learned from the GPS to be able to then use in spaces where the GPS doesn't exactly work as well, indoor spaces. But it's been a really cool thing to be able to see, because then you've got an objective measure of what we think is a pretty good injury prevention tool.
So in the summertime, I know our fall sports start early, softball and cross country and football, they start, and we even have band, that they start their practices in July or August. So what type of things are in place to make sure that our student athletes stay safe when there's really, really hot weather?
Right. That's kind of hard to think about right now, because it's like 15 degrees outside right now. But we've started following, and it's kind of become a national thing in the last few years, what's called wet bulb. And so we use a platform called Periweather that we've kind of used with transportation, and I know Paul Croft uses it with safety. So I was trying to figure out what's puts us in the best position to be successful as a district and also as athletics for the weather. So for sports in general, or sports, I guess specifically, the cross countries, the footballs, those sports that are outside that you think of the most in those types of environments, we're going to follow guidelines to where if it gets too hot, we'll actually pull them inside and say we're not going to be able to participate outside for it's usually a window of time.
And I know in Oklahoma we've had to do that because the humidity plus the heat, that we've actually had to do that, and it even helps with our school sites because recess, or waiting for the bus, and make sure that they're just not outside too long. So
it's been a pretty cool tool to have because our coaches have that platform on their phones as well, and so I don't have to be the heat police. They can literally pull up their phone and they know. So for, like I said, for the 25 sports, but you've got JV, you've got 8th grade, you got 9th grade, and so trying to monitor all those. We just communicate with those coaches, make sure that on days that it's going to be super hot, I'll send out an email to all the head coaches and say, hey, today's a day that you're going to have to really pay attention. And we've been pretty successful with that. We've had great buy-in from our coaches, and I think it's really taken our athlete safety to a new level, for sure.
As talking about heat, you sweat a lot during the heat, but it really just at any practice you're sweating. And so I know back in the day, like way back when I was in sports, it was like you were tough, you didn't drink water, and now I know that's a huge thing that we want to make sure our athletes stay hydrated so they don't have heat stroke or heat exhaustion. And so how does the training staff ensure that the teams, when they're working out and on game day or at a cross country meet or a track meet, that they have the water that they need or hydration they need?
Cross country seems to be the biggest issue during those times because their competition is actually sometimes during the hottest times of the day. Football, you don't really have to worry about as much from a competition standpoint because all of our games are at 7 or 7:30.
Yeah.
And so, we've had that conversation with football coaches before, and even, just not just our coaches, but even outside of the district where, how are our guys going to be ready to play if we can't practice when it's the hottest times of the day?
Yeah.
Well, we're not trying to get guys ready for competition at 7:30 if we're practicing at 2:30 in the afternoon. Like that doesn't really quite make sense.
Yeah.
Now for cross country, it absolutely does because they'll have their cross country meets in the middle of the afternoon, and so we'll work with our cross country coaches to make sure that hey, it looks like it's going to be really hot. We're going to need to either back it up, push it forward, do something to get it out of that window of time. where it's just, above what our wet bulb parameters would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, water is obviously a huge part of it. We'll do cold towels and ice bags and cold tubs. Another one that's more of a safety mechanism of somebody starts to overheat. I don't usually play around. Let's just get in the tub.
Yeah.
It's way easier to do that than let
Just
you
get
get
that
to the
core body
point
temperature down.
and push
Yeah.
yourself to the point where we're passing out or something.
Yeah.
That can be prevented.
Do we also provide electrolyte replacement or in the water, or is there two different types of fluids that we provide?
We have some different
Yeah.
things. Yeah. Previous to this, I did college football for 10 years, so there's all kinds of tips and tricks and kind of things that you can do.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, more so than general. Most guys, most girls will be okay with just your general Gatorade. Make sure you eat, make sure you hydrate, that type of stuff. There's going to be some really specific guys and girls that they're called what we call salty sweaters, where they're going to really lose a lot of sodium in their sweat.
I think I might be one of those.
And so at that point, we're going to specifically target them and give them a little bit extra because we know them.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's kind of a feeling out period, especially
Yeah.
early in the season where you don't know all of your people. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things Zach and his crew do a great job of too is education and the importance of hydrating before they get there. And it's a continual thing. It's not just when you get ready to practice that you need to be hydrated. You need to make sure you eat. You have some food in your stomach.
I think it's working because I've seen our kids carrying around these big milk gallon jugs of water.
Yeah.
Around with
and I
them.
think that's something too. You look at the Pride of Owasso. I think they do an incredible job too as far as restructuring and moving their start times and their practice times because you have to when you're out here in July and August.
Yeah.
So, like Zach said, it's hard to think about that right now, as cold as it is. But
one of the other things that comes to mind too is in the news and just with NFL injuries, head injuries, and concussions. Now the NFL is really watching concussions. Sorry, not percussion. I'm thinking band. Concussion protocols, and so we at the high school level also have that. And of course, with football, you're going to have a chance potentially to have more concussions than you would with other sports, but anybody can hit their head and have that happen to them. Basketball, it could happen. I guess cross country, if you trip and fall and hit your head. Volleyball, girls soccer, yeah.
Cheer,
you get hit in the head. Cheer, yeah.
Cheer's a big one.
So what do we do as a district, and how do we know if someone's had a concussion? What are those concussion protocols?
Sure.
And then what do we do to help them through that?
Right. So we have a platform called Sway that is a phone based platform that we baseline test all of our kids prior to their season starting.
So every single one of our student athletes does this?
All of them that have a great chance to hit their head.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Cross country and track we don't do because the chances are pretty small.
Yeah.
But we have a limited number of tests that we or a certain amount. I guess I shouldn't say limited because I think it's over 600. But that we do all that baseline testing with all those kids prior to their season ever starting, and so it gives us a pretty good idea of what we call what they are when they're normal. And so if they feel, if they're kind of spacey after a hit, if they don't feel quite right, and kids have gotten so much better about that over my career of being a lot more upfront about it. You'll still have the kids that try to hide it a little bit.
Yeah, because they don't want to come out of the game. They don't want to come out.
They don't want to. They don't. And I've felt this before, and I was fine. Kind of a deal. And so that goes back to the education. That Dove was talking about is educating them as to why it's important. So just kind of a quick story with that. We had a football player actually during one of our playoff games that he didn't want to say anything about it, but one of his teammates came over and said, "Hey, so-and-so's he ain't right now. And so that education piece of everyone, and them understanding the importance of what can happen if we
so
don't
taking
report
care
it.
of each other. That's
Taking
awesome.
care of each other. And so I thought that was really,
That's
really cool.
very cool. Very cool. Let's see. Let's talk about injury rehab. So when an athlete has an injury, do they get to come to the training room and talk about the updates to the training room too? So we had a bond
Sure.
issue in 2022, and we were able to make some upgrades. So tell us about those upgrades, and then what happens? Like how does a student athlete get that rehab and that therapy they need?
Sure. So,
Zach, like, you want to jump in?
Well, I don't know where you want to talk. The athletic training room, the newly renovated, I guess I should say, athletic training room was finished in August of 23. And that more than doubled our space. We had a nice training room by all means, comparatively. But it wasn't, like I said, we've got 25 sports. We've got 1,200 something athletes. Like it just wasn't big enough for what we needed. So that was my biggest ask, was just space. And we went way beyond that. More than doubled the space. Created essentially the space that we were in previously, and then knocked out a wall, added some doors, added some glass to make a different wall, and made a much larger rehab space to where we were able to buy new equipment and have the functional space to be able to do rehab exercises. And so now it's really, really, really neat. We got a cold plunge. Looks like a hot tub, but it's just cold. Kids love that. Makes them feel better. We have an AlterG treadmill. The only high school in the state that has one. And what that does is that offloads your body weight to be able to take you down to 20% of your body weight. So the cool thing about that is if you're coming back from an injury, especially lower body, but even kind of like some back stuff that it works with as well, I can run you on that treadmill and be able to take away essentially 80% of your body weight.
Man,
to where
I think I might need to come run on this treadmill.
it's pretty cool. So our docs will let us start, kids running on it weeks, sometimes months ahead of time, to be able to, all right, we can already get the cardio, we can already get a little bit of pressure in hips, ankles, knees, whatever it might be.
Just keep that repetition in that movement with your legs, because I know what it's like when you lay off for a little bit, you try to run again, you kind of feel like a newborn baby deer or something. Like, I got to get my legs moving in the right way.
So that's been a really cool addition. I mean, we've got student athletes coming back from Division I colleges that are like, oh my gosh, like this place is amazing. Like, well, I know, So, but to answer your question as far as about the kids coming in for rehab, so we do treatments in the morning at 7:00 before school starts, and then once 6th hour hits, then it kind of comes a little bit of a circus up there. Trying to take care of all of the kids coming in that need taped or braced or whatever it might be, or they're coming in just to say, hey, my knee hurts. Can you look at it? Or a kid that we already know what's going on with them, and they just need to get their rehab in. So here's your plan. We already know what we're doing.
So do we get doctor's orders? Is that how we know what the plan is for each student athlete?
For some kids, yeah. I mean, if it's something significant enough, we'll refer out and have a doc take a look at it. There's times where I'll tell a kid, I don't feel comfortable with working with you until you've seen a doctor. Like there's things we can
potential ACL tear.
I mean, we can do the basic things like ice and motion and that kind of stuff. But even then, we kind of got to be careful about what we do until a doctor has seen it. Or it may be some, a simple ankle sprain of some kind or something like that, where we can take care of that and we don't necessarily need to have a doctor take a look at it.
Yeah. That's good. So as far as training, so we've talked about injury prevention and then rehab, but prior to that, it's getting our athletes. We have a state-of-the-art weightlifting facility, and that helps all of our athletes get stronger and that maintain flexibility. So tell us a little bit about that facility and how we utilize it, and how many student athletes run through there every day.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a unbelievable strength conditioning staff. We have 3 certified strength coaches that see every one of our student athletes.
Every single one?
Every single one. And so like Zach said, that's anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200, depending on the year and how many kids we have. But, whether they're preseason, in season, or out of season, depends on the frequency that they're in the weight room. So those kids aren't in there necessarily every single day. But when you hear our strength coaches talk, the first thing they say is the best thing about strength conditioning is it's really an injury prevention. And so they go at it with the mindset. I know they meet weekly with our athletic trainers and talk about kids and talk about, okay, here's what's coming up. What should we be doing to make sure these kids are ready to go? And having that expertise on the training side and on the strength side really sets us apart. It really is an incredible working relationship between the two, and I think that gives us an edge compared to a lot of schools, and more of a collegiate model. And those strength conditioning coaches, just like our athletic trainers, are always staying up on the latest trends and what's new, what's the hot thing, what can we do to help. Again, we talk about sports specific. In soccer, our female athletes, ACLs is a big thing.
Yeah.
And so they do a lot of stuff trying to strengthen ACLs. Now, we still have ACL injuries, but we would like to think we have less than we would have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Have you, as a trainer, over your course of time, have you seen the impact of doing the strengthening and conditioning, lifting weights, as far as injury prevention with athletes?
Yeah, and we talk about that as far as an injury prevention mechanism, because they touch every one of our athletes because they're being, they're in the weight room and they are working out consistently. They're going to be able to do things with the athletes that we can't do, as an athletic training staff. And so like Duff said, we're constantly meeting with them, going over injury reports. What is it that, say somebody does tear their ACL. Well, they do what's called 3/4 lift. So they're going to lift with their other leg, and there's obviously no reason why they can't lift upper body. So we're already getting them back in to strengthen and hopefully prevent any kind of further injury on any other limb. But yeah, the injury prevention is probably the biggest part.
It's huge
of what they do.
I know. I don't know about you. Did you lift weights when you were in high school?
We did.
I didn't. We didn't do it. I didn't lift a single weight.
Even when I went to college, we just did what our college coaches did in high school. So it wasn't like we really had a plan. And so I think watching the plan and the time and effort that goes into what our kids are getting now from the strength staff and the athletic training staff is incredible.
So everybody's plan is geared towards their sport and like the major muscles they use in that sport.
And what time of year they're in, like I said. I think they're big differences, whether you're just maintaining or whether you're trying to, kind of recover a little bit when the season's over, or you're really trying to get after it in the off season.
And if we start to see something in the training room, like, say that we start to see more hamstring strains or something like that, then that's where that expertise comes in with, there's actually 4 athletic trainers, so 3 others besides me, and 3 strength staff. So the 7 of us will get together and say, okay, girls soccer is seeing a lot more hamstring strains. What do we need to do about that? How can we prevent that? And again, that comes down to in the weight room. What are they doing differently? Can we change something? Is there something that may be causing it? Or is there something that maybe we can do to add to help prevent it? So we kind of are always kind of changing those plans, and our strength staff is phenomenal. The times that we have to change things are few and far between, but but they're also open, and nobody has an ego, to be able to say, that's not going to work. Well, let's try it. Let's see if it doesn't work.
I know when, I think our athletes look at the strength and conditioning as like one of a coach that's on their team, even though that coach is not actually out on the field with them. But I say that because at the community pep rally that we had, when Coach Johnson left to go with his wife to where was it, Washington. And so we all hated to see him go, but we understand you got to go where your wife goes. But when he came on the big screen at the football field to give a pep talk or say some things to the team, everybody just cheered like crazy.
Yeah.
So
you have to remember, and especially in college, but somewhat in high school, they're with the strength coaches more than they're with their individual sport coaches. And the weight room's a really good teacher. It teaches you a lot about discipline, a lot about hard work, a lot about overcoming obstacles. And our strength staff, you look now, you have Maddie Harrelson, you have Jared Shibley, Rob Scott. They use that to their advantage, and they have an opportunity to pour into kids and help them be able to do things they didn't think they could do, and overcome those crazy obstacles that are going to help them in life. So
kind of have a
that's
growth
the exciting
mindset.
part about the weight room.
Build that grit and overcoming adversity and that sort of thing. Can you guys think of anything as we kind of wrap up here, just a success story of maybe an athlete that you can think of that has gone through the program and maybe had some adversity, had an injury, but came back and did really well? Can you guys think of anybody like that? Or you don't have to say names, but any success story?
We've had quite a few.
Yeah, you can tell them your Cole Adams, your Alter G story.
No, yeah.
I mean, he had Cole Adams broke his leg.
Yes.
And the trainers from Alabama called him and said, "Hey, you guys have an Alter G, right?" And he goes, "Well, go ahead and get him started while he's home on Christmas break." So, I mean, that just happened.
Wait, Cole Adams just now broke his leg?
During the season.
At Alabama? Oh my gosh, I didn't hear about
Zach
that.
helping rehab him.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So,
poor Cole. I didn't realize that.
I think that's one of the when I say that we have kids come back from college that see our facility and obviously already know us, but I think that's a really big thing for me as far as you notice the trust that they have in you, and so our staff, Destry Millsap, Katie Strathy, and also Kate Grady, Kate Hayes. She got married. Between the four of us, we'll have former athletes call us and say, "Hey, now we got to be careful, because sometimes they're asking for advice, in season." I'm like, "Well, you need to go see your athletic trainer." Okay, but when they're home. And they're coming to see us, and we're able to then communicate with their athletic trainer and say, "Hey, is this what you want? Is this what they need to be doing?" The Cole Adams of the world is pretty cool. Yeah. It's pretty cool to be able to have the facility to do it.
That's what I was going to say, that we have the equipment and facilities to be able to make that kind of a seamless thing for our
and I think
alumni.
In typical kid fashion, they don't know what they don't know. So they just know about Zach and Destry and Kate and Katie. And then, it's great. And then they go to college and realize, that they're doing the same thing there that we're getting here, and kind of a newfound appreciation.
Yeah, look back and appreciate.
So I think for me, that's exciting to see them get that gratitude a little bit from our kids.
Well, thank you guys for all that you do. We could not have the success that we have in our athletic programs without our facilities being safe and well equipped, and then, oh my gosh, without our training staff. There's no way that our athletes do what they do without you guys. So thank you to you and your staff, Zach, and everything that you guys do. You're kind of behind the scenes. I don't think people really realize how much you guys do and how important you are, but I would say the number one most important part of our athletic programs is our training. So thank you.
Well, and I'll kind of mirror that and just say thank you, because for administration to, have our back and also, give us the resources to do our job, I think it'll make or break your job. And we talk about that amongst our staff because we see, what goes on around the world, around the country, and we've got it really good. And a lot of that is attributed to our administration. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And the reason why we do this for our student athletes is because you talked about 1,200 students. So we've got elementary kids that look up to our student athletes, and they want to they want to do this. Having an amazing athletic program or student activities programs allows opportunities, scholarships, that sort of thing for our students academically, but also it keeps them engaged and excited about coming to school and creates that culture and climate that we want at school, where everyone feels a part of something and excited to be a part of it. And of course, it brings the whole community together too. And that's one of the great things about Owasso, all the support we get from our community. So thank you guys for participating with us today in our Student Activities Safety Talk Tuesday. And that concludes this episode of Safety Talk Tuesday. See you next time.